people how to calculate amp hours on a 12-volt battery, particularly the hybrid type batteries that you would get at Pet Boys or Advanced Auto Parts and AutoZone, etc. Which a lot of people look down on for solar, but the reality is they're the cheapest and they're the most accessible, and they work. The reality is they work. Now, I'm gonna give you an example. This battery right here, this is used to be Autocraft from Advanced Auto Parts. Now they changed it to Die Hard, but it's the same battery, Group 24. These are deep cycle. Okay, if you notice there, these are RV battery, deep cycle marine batteries. Now, what happens with these batteries in specific is that a lot of people say, oh, well, they're not for solar because solar batteries tend to be a lot more robust, a lot more expensive. And, but anyway, this battery is a hybrid battery. It could be used as a starter battery, and as a deep cycle battery. That's why it has cold cranking amps. Generally, solar batteries don't have cold cranking amps, but these do. So, like I said, these are hybrid, but they are deep cycle batteries. Now, the reserve capacity on this is basically how many minutes this battery can run with a load of 25 amps. So, if you hook up 25 amps to this battery, it should last 100 and if you hook up a load of 25 amps, it should last 140 minutes. Now, a lot of times what people do, there is actually a formula that people have used and that I used to use, which was to figure out the amp hours. What you do is you divide 140 by 2, and then you add 16, which gives you, I think it was 86 amp hours. Now, there are two formulas. That is the first one. Actually, there are three formulas. The first one is you take the 140 divided by 2 and add 16, which gives you about 86. Now, the other people say, oh, well, you just divide the reserve capacity by 2 and you get the amp hours, which in that case, which would be 70. Both of which, in my experience, and I've been living off grid for a while, and that this is my battery bank consisting of these batteries in specific. The formula that actually worked for me and was more precise is this. So write it down if you wish. All right, you take 140, you multiply that times 60, then you multiply that times 25, and then you divide by 3,600. Okay, so you multiply 140 times 60 minutes, which is an hour. Multiply that times 25, which is the load, and then you divide by 3,600, and it will give you about 58 amp hours. Now, in my experience, living off grid with this system, I can tell you and I can attest that that last formula is the most accurate. For these batteries, in particular, which is the ones that I have here, are a little larger than a regular car battery. A regular car battery are about 45 amp hours. So it makes a lot of sense that this battery, based on that calculation, it would give you 58. So yeah, this looks to me more like a 58 amp hour battery rather than 86 amp hours, which would have came out with the first calculation. So solar batteries, it'll say amp hours on it. But these batteries that are hybrid, what they'll give you is the reserve capacity. So, in my experience, in my real life experience dealing with these, the most accurate and precise calculation is the third one, which is take 140 reverse reserve capacity, multiply it times 60, multiply that by 25, and then divide by 3,600, and it will give you the proper amp hour figure for those batteries. The reason and I think this is very important is because a lot of time we have our batteries and we overestimate the amp hours. And then when we find ourselves short on power for some reason, then we wonder, oh, is my battery going bad? Is it this? Is it that? When in reality, the problem is that you overestimated the calculation on the amp hours. Now, what happens is my batteries, I've had them for a while, and yes, they've lost a little bit of the capacity. I mean, I've had them for almost 5 years now, and yes, they have lost a little bit of the capacity. So right now, as of right now, after all the years that I've been using it, that calculation is the accurate one. You know what I mean? Um, I base that on, like, for example, like I use my deep freezer. Use that as an example. My deep freezer draws about 13 amps, okay, which is 1.5 amps AC. But when you factor it in terms of batteries, you multiply that times 12. So I mean, times, times 12 volts, which will give you, about 13 amps. Um, from 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock, when I run the deep freezer, I shut it off at 11. Basically, I am supposed to have wasted 25% of the capacity of my battery bank system, of the whole battery bank. Hey, shout out to Joe Biggs. So, and based on this calculation, it has been very consistent. At 11 o'clock at night, I calculate, and I look at the numbers, and yeah, lo and behold, I'm exactly at 25% depth of discharge. So, I think, a lot of times, I mean, I don't know, happen with me, when you're like new in the whole solar thing, and they tell you, well, your battery is 58 amp hours, or somebody else says, no, those are 80 amp hours. You kind of like lie to yourself, and you say, oh no, mine are 80 something amp hours. You're lying to yourself. I mean, after being in for a while, you really want the real numbers. And could they be a little higher than 58 amp hours? I would say most likely, especially if they're new. But after a while, that they kind of like loosen up a little bit, I'm still getting those numbers, about 58 amp hours. So that's what you got to do, guys. You take the reserve capacity, you multiply it times 25, and multiply that times 60, and then divide by 3,600. Or you could do it the other way around. The reserve capacity times 60 times 25. It doesn't matter what order it is. So reserve capacity, multiply it times 60, multiply that by 25, and then divide by 3,600, and you'll get the amp hours of your batteries, your real accurate amp hours. So, and then build your system according to that. According to that. Now, if you do a search on Google, and you just a random search, how long or how many amp hours is a deep cycle marine battery, it'll say from 70 to 85. um I'm in my experience, in my personal experience, I think that's a little more. But like I said, maybe when it's new, you probably will get higher numbers. But I think people should, account for battery usage. How old the battery is, and I'd rather undersize or think that I have less, and not fall short. So these Group 24, that is a diehard Group 24 DC-1. They sell that battery in particular at Advanced Auto Parts. They're about $120 a piece. Now, sometimes they do a sale. They're like, maybe I've seen them go down to like 85, $90. But you got to bring a core. Advanced Auto Parts gives you about $22 for your core. So it brings down the price a little bit. Joe Big says, I like free lighting without batteries. Using a magnet to light a bulb. Look it up on YouTube. It's fantastic, unbridled power. Joe, I've already tried that, man. Doesn't work. That does not work. If that were true, the energy companies and batteries wouldn't even exist. Those are gimmicks put on YouTube. You know, I don't know why people believe that. In my tests I've started off, they've done tests taking taking a multi-plug and plugging it into itself. That does not work. Electricity, there are laws of physics. You can't get more than what you're putting in. This doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So I'm sorry, Joe. There's no such thing as free energy, you know. But these batteries, they've worked well, for all of these years. I've maintained them very well. Every month, I check the water levels. You got to make sure it's distilled water. A lot of people use regular tap water, and they'll ruin the batteries. So I keep a record every month. I fill the batteries up, and actually I don't have to fill them up. I just look, if it needs a little bit of water, and that's it, man. That's pretty much the only maintenance that you got to do. Now, these batteries, especially the technology of lead acid batteries, you have to keep them charged to 100%. These batteries like being at 100%. If you don't charge them to 100%, you're gonna run into sulfation. And sulfation, it'll kill your battery. Basically, it's sulfation is that crud that you see when you open up your car, and the posts are all cruddy. That's sulfation. That's acid. And that grows inside of the plates of the batteries, and it'll short circuit them, damage them. Then after 2 3 years, you got to buy a new battery. So you wanna make sure your levels are there. You want to make sure that your batteries get a full charge. you know so um you have to your batteries need to get a full charge, because of that. Now, lead acid batteries and lithium are two totally different creatures. Lead acid battery likes to be charged. Lithium battery, you could discharge it, and charge it, and they're really more like lenient. Lead acid batteries, don't bring them down lower than 50%. Once you see it says 12.0, turn your loads off, turn that battery off, and start charging it. You want to keep your batteries alive for a long time, do that. Once you see 12.0, if in fact even 11.9, when you're on a load, it says 11.9, so you know that it's at 11.9, but once you turn the load off, it'll jump up a little bit to 12.1. That's what you want. You don't want to use more than that. You'll kill it. You'll kill the battery if you go below 12.0. you know so that's what happens with these batteries. Like, another problem with lead acid batteries, is that some people, you leave them on float charge, right? And if you don't use them much, what happens is that you get something called acid stratification. Whereas it's kind of like orange juice, when you don't, when you leave it in the fridge, that the water goes up and the pulp will go down. So the same thing will happen to the batteries. The acid will kind of like go down to the bottom of the plates. The top will stay with basically just water. And what will happen is that the plates, the cells will start, to corrode, because of the fact that, it's only water. It's called acid stratification. And then what happens is that the batteries, when it has acid stratification, it'll give you just a little bit of the power, because the acid is concentrated in the bottom, so you lose power. So it's good to exercise the batteries, and it's good to, let them circulate and let them charge once a month. Let your battery system equalize them. Equalization brings up the voltage pretty high, but what it does, it, bubbles everything up. But like I said, guys, a lot of people talk about lithium and the AGM batteries that are no maintenance. I mean, they're all good. Lithium are extremely expensive, and I mean, it has its pros and its cons. But I think lead acid batteries are very good, man. They're robust. They're cheap. You can recycle 95% of them. They're proven. The technology has been there for about 100 years already, and they work, so that's just my advice. But like I said, when you see reserve capacity, and guys, please, and I've stressed this enough, and I want to say it again. Look, honestly. All right, if you don't see that word right there on the battery you're buying, don't buy it. for solar. It has to say deep cycle. If it says, even if it says marine, if it says starting battery, basically, if it's a starting battery, it's not a solar battery. Starting batteries on the plates are a lot smaller and they're spongier. So they're made with the purpose of just starting the engine. They're not made with long usage. So what happens is if you buy a starting battery and you try to use that for solar, after a year, maybe even less, if they're gonna be gone because those batteries are made for the user to use like maybe 5%, 10% at max during startup, and immediately the alternator kicks in and charges it up. But when you take a car battery or starting battery, whether or not it says marine, and you use that, for solar, what ends up happening is that you ruin the battery because you're dropping them down too low. They're not made for that. They can't handle it, and you'll just lose your money. So don't think of building a solar system with a car battery. It's not going to happen. Now, if you have an old car battery laying around and you have a little shed and you just want to turn on some little LED lights, then yes, you could use a car battery for that, but not for freezers and not for stuff that you're gonna like, basically live DIY. It's not going to work. If you're building a system, get deep cycle batteries. Like I said, I have hybrid batteries. Get yourself, but if you have the money, get yourself some true solar batteries like the Trojans, the golf cart batteries that are 6 volts. Those are basically true solar batteries. The problem is you're going to need two of them just to, have a 12-volt system, you know, um, and that starts adding up, because it's only 6 volts, so you need to put two of them in series to get 12 volts, So it's not like me. I have my batteries all together, Joe Big says, "Gotta be smarter than what you're working with." Goes the old saying. Yeah, I mean, it's all about being practical. It's all about being practical. But you figure, why are people gonna buy a car battery, which is gonna cost you the same as a marine battery? You know, it's not gonna work right for solar. It's gonna go bad. So you may as well just get the right one. So just as well, make sure it just says deep cycle on it. So if it says deep cycle, you can use it for solar. Yeah, and make sure you don't use it more than 50%. With lithium, that's a different thing. You got lithium batteries, you could bring them down to 80%, no problem. And yet even with lithium, if you only use them to 50%, they'll last you even longer. So, it's just a good habit to get in only using 50%. That's why mine, I've had them forever, man, and they're working perfectly. You know, so that's what's happening. But solar guys, solar is very simple, man. Whoever whoever gets how do you say, like, intimidated by building their own solar system, man, you shouldn't. You know, basically a solar panel is just a battery charger. You go put that thing on your roof, and then you bring a cable down, and then you get one of these little things right there. It's called a charge controller, and that basically just regulates the electricity, and the cable from the charge controller goes to your battery. That's it. That's a solar system. That's how you charge the batteries with the sun. And then what you do is you get an inverter, which will take, the inverter, it's this. If you don't know what an inverter is, hold on, let me flip the camera here for a second. All right. If you got an inverter, that little box right there, you can pick them up at any auto parts, and then you clamp that on like that to the battery post, positive and negative, and that's it. You have a solar system. The sun comes out, charges your battery, and you plug in your TV to the inverter, and that's it. And you have a solar system. And if the shit hits the fan, you have power. It's very simple. A lot of people are intimidated. They think it's complicated. It's only 4 steps. 4 steps. I'm going to go through the 4 steps again. Okay, can't show you, but in the roof, you got the solar panel. Cable comes down. goes into the charge controller. Charge controller adjusts the voltage, and you connect it to the battery. And there you go. That's how your battery charges. All right. And then you connect an inverter, which takes the 12 volts and it inverts it to 120, which is household power. And you plug whatever the hell you want to plug into it. And that's a solar system. That's all. There's nothing else. You know what happens is, like, if the batteries are charged, then and you have the inverter on, then since the batteries aren't empty anymore, then the energy that comes from the solar panel, instead of going into the battery, it comes straight through here, and anything you're running is running straight off of the sun. you know so during the day, if there's sun, you're running off of the sun as long as your batteries are full, and at night you're running all on battery power. And that's it, man. It's not this isn't complicated. It's not complicated at all. And it's sad that a lot of companies, I mean, I can understand they're trying to make some money, but this is survival stuff. I think that this should be explained like so easily. you know so this is my main solar system right here. All right, I have 5 charge controllers because I have 5 different solar arrays. Okay, so that's my main solar system, which I use to run like my entire house and run everything. And then in my bedroom, I have my other solar system, which has 500 watts. This is independent. Let me see if I show that to you. This is independent, but this looks more simple. Okay, so solar panels on the roof, the charge controller, it's hooked up to the battery, and I got an inverter hooked up to the battery, and you turn it on and you plug shit in. And that's it. End of story. Charge controller. Right there's the solar panel, little sun. That's the battery. Right there you got how many volts are coming in. 18 volts. Right now it's bringing in 14.8 amp, 15 amps. We got good sun out there. The battery's at 13.6. They're almost charged. And 20 amps are coming in because this charge controller is a technology called MPPT, which boosts what the solar panel puts out. And then if you want more power, then you add another battery and you can hook it up in parallel, and there, now you have more runtime. You know, it's pretty simple, man. It's pretty simple. You know, I want to like demystify the whole concept of solar. Because some people think it's something like really complicated. It's not. The problem is that some solar systems, when they do it in higher voltages, 24, 48 volt systems, when they add like lithium Tesla batteries, and stuff like that, and then they hook it up to the grid with transfer switches, that, yes, it gets complicated. If you're taking a solar system to that level, then yeah, I advise, you have a company do it, if you don't know what you're doing. But my channel is more on the DIY survival, practical. I want people to do it themselves, and that's why I do it like that. I haven't argued. People have a problem with me in terms of, give me a second, hold on. Yeah, people have an issue with me because I'm not a big, lithium battery advocate. I have a problem with lithium, and I'm going to tell you what my problem with lithium is. One one deep cycle battery that's about 100 amp hours costs you about $100, $120. The same battery in lithium will cost you about 800. All right, look at the brand like Battleborn. Now there are some generic brands that have come down. I think the cheapest was just reviewed by Will Prowse. That was the brand was Waze or Wise. I don't know how to Weize. That's a lithium battery that he reviewed, which was really good, 100 amp hours, and that was about 300 and something bucks, which is still expensive. Now, are they good? Yeah, they're good. I mean, they're great batteries. Um, but the problem is, this is my biggest worry about lithium batteries, outside of the cost. The lithium battery has a circuit board in it. That circuit board is called what they call a BMS, which is a battery management system. So if you open one up, you'll see this nice little circuit with MOSFETs and cables. And what that does is it ensures that all of the cells inside of the lithium battery are charged equally. If you don't know what an 18650 battery is, it's basically imagine a 12-volt battery like your car battery full of AA batteries. That's what a lithium battery looks like inside. It's like 1,000, imagine like 1,000 AA batteries, but they're not AA batteries. They're a little bigger, a little fatter, and they're called 18650 batteries. But anyway, my whole point is, so these lithium batteries, they have this BMS circuit inside. Now, as a prepper, we all think about the coronal mass ejections, we think about the EMPs. And if you get an EMP, those solid state circuits are gonna burn. So I'm thinking, this is just my thought. In an EMP, all these people who have this wonderful lithium batteries, they're gonna be shit out of luck because in an EMP, all their BMSs is gonna get messed up. You know, in my case, right? An EMP, if an EMP hits, I have to worry about two things. Charge controller is gonna mess up, and the inverter is gonna mess up. That's all I got to worry about. So how do I mitigate that? Then I buy an extra inverter and an extra charge controller, and I put it in some kind of Faraday cage or some kind of a receptacle or a metal thing, like it could be a metal trash can, and seal it up. And you have that in an emergency. EMP happens, but what happens is with lithium, you'd have the worry of the battery going bad, something that it's not going to happen with lead acid. Lead acid battery is not going to mess up. All it is lead and acid. That's not EMP is not going to mess up. Solar panels will take a hit a little bit in an EMP, but not that much either. You'll probably just get a little reduction in power. So all right, Counterfeit says Edison batteries can be drawn down 100% with no damage. You know what? I was watching a video about those Edison batteries. You're absolutely right. And they say that they last forever, but I wouldn't know where to even get those. Counterfeit says you can get a grounding filter that will protect us against MPs. It's EMP. Um, the problem is this, all right? Counterfeit. There's a company that calls itself EMP Shield. Now, they came up with a little box which is basically like like they call it EMP Shield, and that little box basically shunts the electricity so it won't destroy your stuff. Okay, um, it's basically a lightning arrestor. Now, this company in particular, they market it as an EMP shield. But the thing is, and one of them little boxes are like 300 and something plus dollars. Now, do I believe they work? No, I don't, and I'm going to explain why. In a lightning situation, yes, it'll work. Lightning. But an EMP is like through the air. It's not only if you're connected to the grid, it's through the air. So even if I have a grounding circuit on my system, I would think that my electronics, it's like, for example, you get an EMP right now. If an EMP happens and you're on your laptop, even if you're not connected, your laptop is going down just through the EMP in the air. So a grounding unit that will shunt things, it's not gonna do anything, it's not gonna do anything in the case of an EMP, where it's just like magnetic signal. It's not really even electricity. It's just a electromagnetic pulse. So I don't believe in those grounding things. I believe in those things as a lightning arrestor. Yes, I believe in that sense, but not for EMP, man. I don't think anything could hold back EMP. And the thing is, this company, they market that grounding thing as an EMP shield. But the thing is, we're never going to find out until the shit hits the fan. And then when the shit hits the fan, you ain't going to be able to get in touch with them if it doesn't work. So, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So, to me, that company, EMP Shield, I think that they simply took a regular house lightning arrestor, a shunt that grounds the spike of current, and I think they just relabeled it and called it EMP shield. But I don't know. That's my whole point. I mean, maybe they work. I mean, they have their arguments, and they say that their EMP shield, um, basically that it exceeds military thing. And I know that there's a company, there are various companies, but of like luxury vehicles that actually come, supposedly with an EMP shield installed. Um, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It might work. It might not. Me personally, my belief is that more. I believe in it as a lightning arrestor. I would like to get one just for that purpose, just to ground in case of lightning. But EMP, man, nobody really knows, man. Nobody really knows what'll happen. And EMPs, they worry, man. They worry me, so, especially like people with pacemakers. What'll happen to them in an EMP? You know, I don't know if pacemakers has any solid state electronics in it or whatnot. That worries me. But like batteries, the batteries like right now, even if an EMP hits right now, even if it burns my inverter, even if it burns my charge controller, I mean, you could still hook up a cable to the battery and run a water pump, or run a regular LED light, or run, like I have a little 12-volt fridge which doesn't require um an inverter. But then again, the 12-volt fridge does have a little circuit to change the menu. So I mean, I hope an EMP never comes, because that's gonna be some really messed up shit. That's gonna mess up things to a degree. Let me tell you, when Hurricane Maria hit here in Puerto Rico, I saw the lines at the bank. People were going through hunger, having money, but they couldn't take it out of the bank. ATMs weren't working, and I said to myself, man, you can't trust technology. Shit, I like analog shit. That's why I like lead acid batteries. They're analog. Old cars, anything I think before 1985, will probably survive an EMP. You know, Not these new cars. You gonna tell me EMP Tesla? If you got a Tesla, you're gonna be shit out of luck in an EMP. You're gonna be searching for somebody to sell you a Chevy truck, a 1980 Chevy truck, or something that doesn't require. That's why when we see these movies like Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome, and the new ones, they're riding around in old cars like Novas and like dirt bikes. When an EMP kills all the cars, look at all the batteries. Damn, counterfeit! You just hit that nail right on the head. You damn right. I'm gonna go on a frenzy. Because people are just gonna abandon the cars. Shit, that's the moment. You're absolutely right. EMP hits. Ruben gonna come out and grab as many batteries as I can. You know, that's a freaking good one, man. Oh man, see, but now you said it public. Now everybody's gonna be thinking the same thing. But that's a good one, man. That's a real good one. See, in that case, then I would use car batteries for solar, because it's like they won't cost me nothing, you know. But damn, counterfeit, you're a prepper in your mind. I don't know if you are a prepper, but that's a good one. Oh man, we're gonna go on a frenzy. Well, see, I like the marine batteries. But you know what I asked myself, guys? I asked myself one question. Houses have 120 volts. Okay, that's what we're used to. But how is it? I mean, like in my whole DIY experience, I have been able to do everything with 12 volts. When you're dealing with 12 volts, you're not going to get electrocuted. It's only 12 volts. You can touch the posts on a battery with both hands. You're not going to get electrocuted. So I say to myself, why is it that houses haven't adopted this philosophy of 12 volts? It's safer. It works. You know, I don't know. It's simpler, I guess. You know, maybe there's a plan with the energy companies that they want you to work with these really high voltages, all with the purpose of you spending a lot of energy so that they can make a lot of money. You know, but I mean, if I've been able to run my entire house off of a little 12-volt system and a couple of batteries, and I run everything, guys, I do not do without. Let me tell you, I do not do without. You know, I watch TV like everybody. I got my freezer, I got my fridge, I got my studio back there. Back there, my whole recording studio runs on solar. You know, off of a 12-volt system. So, you know, it's hard for me to understand now why the energy companies, why the whole energy system, they've turned it into this whole complex thing. When I live off of it fits inside of a battery. You know, I mean, it's just you know, you don't realize these things till you're off grid. You realize, hold up, why the hell? You know, I'll give you a perfect example, and I'll close out with this. All right, I have a regular fridge in the kitchen. That fridge, I don't use it. I disconnected that a long time ago. That fridge uses um, counterfeit says because the amps you can't push 12 volts very far. Yeah, no, I understand in that aspect of the distribution, then 12 volts wouldn't make any sense. But in like your own house where the electricity doesn't really have to go far, you know what I mean? So anyway, my fridge, my regular fridge that I have in the refrigerator, have in the house, my regular fridge, which I don't use, draws 6.5 amps at 120 volts, which is 65 amps. That's a hell of a lot of power. 65 amps. So I would need like 50 batteries to be able to run that thing 24/7. Yet a deep freezer only uses 1.5. And it does the same shit. Keeps the food from rotting. Deep freezer. The deep freezer does the same thing at a fraction at 1.5 amps. So that means that for the battery, it's about 15 amps. And I turn off the freezer at 11 o'clock at night. A freezer that is off will last you 48 hours with no power, and it'll maintain the temperature. 48 hours, and if it's half full, 24 hours. I turn off my freezer at night. 11 o'clock at night, turns off. In the morning, I wake up, boom. 7 o'clock in the morning, turns on. I leave it off 8 hours, 9 hours at night. Wake up, everything's rock solid, frozen. You know, I mean, I'm just saving power, you know, from all ends. And you know, had I not adopted that, if you hook up a regular fridge and you have a solar system, you're gonna waste all your power on a stupid fridge. Or if you're running your fridge off of a generator, I mean, that's just gonna be a gas guzzling pain in the ass, you know. So you know that's the ticket, guys. It's not only about solar; it's about adjusting. Get yourself a deep freezer with low consumption, 12, little 12-volt fridge. That'll work too. You know, don't buy 12-volt freezers, guys. If you're gonna buy a deep freezer, if you want to live off of solar, don't buy 12-volt freezers because it's the same damn thing as a regular one. You know, and a 12-volt deep freezer, if even if it's 5 cubic foot, will cost you about $800 when you could get a regular one at Walmart for about 200. You know what I mean? So with the remaining money, get yourself some extra batteries and some extra solar if you want, and go buy a whole bunch of meats. You know, I don't see the purpose in 12-volt deep freezers because they waste the same amount of power. Yes, they the only thing is they don't depend on an inverter. But I mean, inverters are about 90 something percent efficient. I mean, really, you know what you're losing. You know, I'd rather save 600, $700. You know, so but deep freezers are the ticket, man. Living off grid, deep freezers. You know, forget electric stoves. Go propane. Buy yourself a gas stove. Gas stoves work. You know, they have now these things. It looks like a compost thing that you put in the backyard if you have a compost toilet, and you could throw all the food scraps and all the crap like that, and it creates gas. It's like a big, looks like a big bag that you put in the backyard, and it creates methane, and you could cook with the methane that the that spoiled food puts out. Now I don't know if I've seen them online, but I don't know if this stuff stinks. I mean, I think that'll probably work maybe if you live out in the boonies somewhere, but not if you're in city life. I don't know. That I'm assuming that'll smell real bad, and then the neighbors will be like, they got a big old bag of shit in the yard that they cook with. So that's why I haven't done it. I don't I don't want to be the neighbor with the big bag of shit in the yard. But it's actually made for that, and it's like sealed and stuff. And it has like a chimney on it. Like it's like a big black bag looking thing, and they sell it. I don't remember what it was called, but you put all your junk in there, and your shit and your piss, because I think the system comes with a composting toilet, or like a toilet, and then it leads to this big bag, and it's kind of like a whole system. But I would think I would think it would stink. They say that it doesn't because because it has a lid. I'm like, yeah, a lid. You know, it have a lid. It's gonna smell like shit out there. But if you can cook with methane. Now my question is this. My question is this: if that creates methane, right? Would it work like if I had like a regulator connected to, let's say, a sewage line? Would I be able to extract the methane from the regular sewage line with like a little lid and a regulator straight to a stove or like a burner? Would that be feasible? Would that even work? Or would you explode? Would you explode the whole sewage? I don't know. I don't know. These are just questions. I'm not gonna do it though. But I mean, because if you could cook with methane, then you don't need propane. It's like I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting into some deep shit right now. Anyways, these are my thoughts, guys. Yeah, but 12 volts, as Counterfeit says, you can't push 12 volts very far, and that's the problem. That's the problem. But other than that, like in a household, you know, 12 volts is awesome because if you're not an electrician, you don't gotta worry. You don't get too scared. It's like I'm not gonna get electrocuted with 12 volts. You know. Anyways, guys, thank you for logging on. Remember the formula to calculate the reserve capacity. The most accurate one, based on my own experience, is what I told you. Take the reverse reserve capacity, multiply that times 60, multiply that times 25, and divide by 3,600, and there you will get the amp hours off of reserve capacity. To my knowledge, that is the most accurate, based on my own tests and experience here. So, take care, guys. God bless you all. Shout out to Counterfeit. Shout out to Sylvan Petronia, to Joe Biggs. Thank you guys for logging on. And Joe Biggs, yeah, man, don't believe that stuff you see on internet. I know I've tried it. It don't work. You can't get more power out of. That's what they call perpetual, like the perpetual motion machines and that type of stuff. It doesn't work. All right, guys. Peace. God bless.